with Inwater Research Group, and we are a conservation and education organization that focuses a lot on sea turtles, but other marine and coastal species too. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about my journey in science and how I got to the job I have today. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it's like to have my job and what I do kind of on a daily basis. So does that sound good? Awesome. Okay. And so my science story started off a very long time ago. I did not grow up in Florida or near the beach like you guys are. I was quite far away from the beach, but very luckily I got the opportunity to visit the beach in Florida a lot during my summers growing up. And so whenever I visited the beach, I was always obsessed with picking up animals and watching the crabs and picking up shells. And I would spend all day at the beach looking at animals, and I just never wanted to go inside. And so I was a child who loved being outside. And between that and during school, I really like my science and math classes. And so spending all that time at the beach growing up and really liking science and math kind of led me to pursue marine biology. And so I did start marine biology school up in Ohio, very landlocked. But I got an opportunity when I was in college to do an internship. And so an internship is kind of like it is a short-term job that you do for maybe like a summer while you're in school or sometimes outside of school. And it's usually like when you're just getting into a job or career and you want to learn a lot of information and gain some skills. And so that's what I did. And I actually got rejected from the first two internships I applied for. And I really thought I wanted to study whales. And, and then I ended up getting offered a turtle internship, actually back on the beach that I would go and visit with my parents growing up. And so I decided to take a chance on it. I didn't know if I would like it, but I've learned that sometimes you just have to try things to see if you like them or not. And so I tried it out and I spent the summer marking sea turtle nests on the beach and driving up and down the beach looking for turtles and turtle nests and studying them. And so it was there at the Clearwater Marine Aquarium. If anyone's ever heard of Winter the dolphin, that's where she was. Um, and it was there when I realized that I loved working with turtles. And I just had this moment where it clicked and I realized that this is what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And so that moves me on a little bit further into my journey with science. I built up a relationship with my bosses and my mentors, and I really liked working with them. So they actually invited me back the following summer to work with them. And this time I got a seasonal job. So I was getting paid now. I had a little more responsibility, and I was able to look around and look for problems and ask questions. And that's what I think is so cool, and I'll talk about it a lot in this presentation about science, is that you can find problems that you want to solve and then you can go figure out cool ways to solve them. And so one of the things that I noticed working with sea turtles when I first started, back when I was 19 and 20 years old, was that a lot of hatchlings were ending up in pools and storm drains. You can see in my photo here, we're digging hatchlings, so baby turtles, out of storm drains. I would find them in parking lots, sometimes in elevators in hotels. And what was happening was that the lights were causing them to go the wrong way. And so all the lights on the hotels and beachfront houses were making them not go to the water. And that's where they're supposed to be. And so this was a bad thing, right? We want turtles to go to the water. And so they can grow into adult turtles. And so I looked for ways I could help solve this problem. I talked to the local community, I went to meetings, and I found that one of the issues was that there was just too many lighting issues for the cities to focus on. And so I made these maps and found a creative way to help the people who were trying to solve this problem better spend their time. And so in doing so, I worked with those turtles for almost 5 years, and I ended up also getting a master's degree. So it was a higher level degree where I had to do a specific research project, and I studied that lighting issue that I talked about, and then I got a degree in conservation biology. And so I'll talk to you guys about today, but there are so many different jobs that you can do in marine biology, and this is just one small specific way you can go. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how I ended up where I am now. And so I decided that after spending 5 years working with turtles on the west coast of Florida, I wanted to try something else. I was curious about what working with turtles looked like in other places, with other organizations, maybe in other countries. And so I did what we call a lot of seasonal work. And so, seasonal work, if you like traveling or maybe even camping or living in new places, if that sounds exciting to you, seasonal work is something that a lot of people, when they're first getting started and building a career, do, at least in biology. And so this means that you might take a job for 6 months, maybe a little longer, um, and you go and travel there. Often you live where you work. So you live with all your coworkers in like a cabin, almost like if been to camp before and sleep in a cabin with other people. Sometimes it means you're camping. And so if you really like doing outdoorsy things, a lot of the seasonal work, especially with turtles, really gets you outside. And so I got to work in different states with other types of turtles, other species I had never worked before. I got to travel to Costa Rica and get to do work in a different country and learn Spanish and learn how different people around the world all work together to help protect and study sea turtles. And so this was amazing because I was able to learn so many skills, but I also got to figure out what I was interested in. And so doing all these varied jobs and everything helped me focus on what I really like to do. And that led me into where I am today. And so a lot of the skills that I learned from working with turtles on the beaches, sometimes in the water, managing projects even, where you have to talk to other people about projects and come up with new ideas and creative solutions to figure out how to help protect turtles, all kind of led me into getting my job that I have today as a sea turtle biologist at Inwater Research Group. And so that is a little bit about how I got here. I've had my job now for 2 years, a little over 2 years. I'm very lucky and happy to be here. And at Inwater, our main goal is to connect education and research in order to help conserve and protect the coastal species that live in our area. And so this is kind of one of those intersections because I work for the research side of our organization, but I'm here today to talk to you all about what I do. And so, as I'll talk a lot, conservation, which we can think of as the protection or management of a species like sea turtles, or even the area where turtles live, like in the water right outside our houses here on the beach. That is all that encompasses is encompassed by conservation. And I really decided to focus my career on conservation because I liked seeing the research that I got to do directly help protect turtles. And so if you find that interesting, maybe conservation is the direction you would go in if you're thinking about doing science when you're older. And so my job, I get to do so many different things. And I'm going to mention this a lot about why I like this job so much. It is so varied. I get to use so many different skills, and every day is different, which is why I love it here. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the in-water work that I do. You can see some photos here. I'm going to share more photos too about how we catch turtles, because to study them, you got to catch them first. I'm going to talk about some science that we get to do with them, why we catch turtles, and what we can learn from them, and how we then use that to help them. Okay, so to start, as I just said, in order to study a turtle, first you have to catch it, especially if you're working with them in water. And so we have some turtles that come up to nest. Adult females will be on land. And so those tend to be easier to study because we as humans are on land. And so it's easier for us to study them. But at Inwater Research Group, as the name suggests, we also study turtles that are not on land. So most of the time, sea turtles spend almost their whole lives in the water. And we catch turtles that are babies, like juveniles, and still children, all the way up to older kids. We call them subadults, and all the way up to adult turtles. And so we use a lot of different tools and methods to catch turtles, but our focus is always on safety. So I know these pictures look a little crazy, but we always focus on the safety of us and the animals first and foremost. And so these skills that we use are something that we practice and work really hard on to make sure that we stay safe. And so the first one, we'll sometimes put on snorkel gear. If you guys have ever been snorkeling or swimming in the ocean with a mask on, we will put on our snorkel gear and we will actually dive underwater and catch them. And we sometimes will have to use our boats, and you can see one of our boats in this photo today, to find and follow turtles. And then we will go in the water and we will grab them. And then we will also sometimes use nets. And so nets are another type of tool that we use a lot in order to catch turtles. And we have different types of nets for different situations. And in this bottom left photo, you can see a turtle that we have caught in a net that we were bringing on the boat. And so this work involves a lot of teamwork. We always have a partner that we're working close with, or maybe even a team of people on the boat. So it takes a lot of communication. We are constantly talking to our coworkers and making sure everyone is safe. Sometimes we have to come up with creative plans. And we're also working what we call in the field. And so when biologists say they're in the field, they mean that they're outside in nature and we are working with animals in the wild. And so when we are in the field, it can rain really hard, storms can come in. So when we are catching turtles, we are always being the safest we can be and paying attention to our surroundings. And so being very aware of your surroundings and being able to work well in a team is so helpful for jobs like this. And so one of our big jobs, and something, again, we practice really hard on, is capturing turtles. But then what do we do after we capture them? And so this is when the science really picks up. And so we have to collect data on the turtles we capture to then learn from them. And we collect all different types of data. This includes measurements. You can see us measuring with tape measures and these other tools at the bottom left picture here called calipers. They're a more controlled way to measure turtles. And so you can see us taking measurements, and this way we can track how much they grow. But first we have to know who they are. And so turtles don't just swim around with name tags on. It is really important for us to know who that turtle is. So if we catch it in 5 years, we'll know that, oh, we caught that turtle before, and now we can look at how long it's grown. And so we put tags in them, and this can look like a microchip. So if your dog has ever been to the vet before, you probably got one of these microchips so that if you were to scan your dog at the vet, a little number would pop up on the screen of a scanner. And we use a very similar thing. So we put a tag under their skin that allows us to identify them. And then in addition to that, we also put little metal tags on their flippers. So if you're ever swimming around on a beach nearby and you see a turtle with a little metal tag on its flippers, that means it's been caught by a scientist and it's a part of a study. And so in addition to tagging, we'll also do health inspections. We'll see how well they're doing. We'll look for things like hooks. It could be bad if a turtle has a hook, so we'll check for hooks. You can see we're checking the mouth of this loggerhead turtle right here. And we'll see how well it's doing. Are there diseases? Are there any like large tumors? Is there anything wrapped around it, like fishing line? And so after we determine they are good, sometimes they get some additional equipment. And so most of our turtles, all of our turtles we capture get the basic data workup. Sometimes we'll also collect blood on them as well, and we can determine if they're a boy or a girl that way, if they're not an adult yet, and we can look at how healthy they are and even where they're from. But another way we study turtles is by a method or a technology that we call a satellite tag. And these are really cool. We don't do these for every turtle because they're very expensive. But we will put a transmitter or a little, it just kind of looks like a piece of plastic that goes and anchors to the turtle's shell. And you can see it in this top photo right here. We're applying it right now. And it has a little antenna sticking out. And so when the turtle is swimming in the water and surfaces, that tag sends a message all the way up to the satellites in space and then back down to our computers. So we can then track like this map down here. You can see the red lines are where that turtle has moved. And so this turtle specifically has moved off of Florida's coast and way down towards Cuba here. And we can see that movement in real time. So that is some really cool research that we get to do in order to study where turtles are going. And you can actually follow our turtles that we've tagged on our website. So if you and your parents are interested in following our turtles around the world, you can go on our website, which I'll share after the end of class if your parents are interested in showing you that. And it's really fun. And so, what else do I do? That is a big part of the work that I do every day, capturing turtles out in the water at our different research sites in Florida and studying them. But I also do work on the beaches as well. And so you might think it's easier to study turtles on land, right? Because you don't have to go swimming for them, you don't necessarily have to go catch them. But just think about being on the beach at 2 a.m. and you're covered in mosquitoes and it's really windy. and you're and it's super dark out. So we do work at night too on our beaches, and we do it at night because turtles or most turtles nest on the beach at night. And so we have projects where we have people driving out on the beach at night looking for turtles. And you can see here we found a turtle and she's laying eggs, and we can put tags in her then. And we can also study things like their size as well. But our focus here is to tag them because we want to know just how many turtles are living nearby and using those beaches because we want to look at how big their population is. And so a population is a group of one species living in the same area. And so to know that, we have to know if we've caught the same turtle or not again. And so that's why they get tags, so we can learn about that. And then in doing so, there's always room in science to ask more questions if you want to. And so we've wanted to also know how fast barnacles that live on turtles grow as well. And so if you really like asking questions and you're really curious, science can be great for that because there's always a new question to ask. And you can see me and another biologist out at night measuring barnacles on that turtle in the photo. And moving on from, and I also, sorry, um, another part about this is that I manage this project. And so another skill that comes up with project management is training people and um, and designing a project and writing sometimes like the directions for the project. And so writing actually becomes a really important piece as well here. Okay, and what else do we do? So, like I said, every day is different and every our work is very varied. And so we also help protect injured and sick turtles. And so we do this in a number of ways. We are out catching turtles most days. And so if we find one that is injured, for example, this turtle here, this little green turtle has a bunch of fishing line wrapped around it. We would then help that turtle out and get it transported to a marine hospital. And so we don't do the medical side of things. We transport the animal to the hospital. And so if anyone has been to Loggerhead Marine Life Center, they are a turtle hospital nearby that will then take care of that animal, but we will take the animal there. And then this other poor little loggerhead on the left here is not feeling well. She's been sick for a while, and so a lot of barnacles have attached to her. And so we also were able to catch her because she was very slow and tired. And we were able to get her to a hospital and get some help. And so working with injured and sick turtles is a really important job. It is also part of that big conservation bubble I talked about. And so it's not just about research or it's not just about research and education, but we also work to help save animals that need help as well. And we don't just do this when we are studying turtles out in the field, but we also get calls from everyone. So if you and your family were walking on the beach one day and you saw an injured turtle, you would call you would call someone for help, and then they would contact us and we would come and get it. So we also will respond to calls when there's an injured animal as well. And so all of this work really is important, and it takes a lot of communication and building relationships with different organizations that do a lot of the care of the animals. And so we work really hard to find the animals that need our help and get them to a place where they can get that extra attention. And then they get released after they've been taken care of and healthy. And so I've talked a lot about turtles because turtles are a big, big part of my job. But the skills that you learn when you're doing any biology job are super flexible and can be used with any other species. And so a lot of the times I talk about how biology and being a biologist is very multidisciplinary. And that's a big word, right? But multidisciplinary really means that I use a lot of different skills from a lot of different subjects. And so we are, of course, doing a lot of science, but we're also doing some math. We're writing up our findings. We are using technology. We use computer programs every day for a lot of different reasons. We use photography and cameras, and there's also a lot of art and creativity in science too. And so that's why I like to call biology very multidisciplinary. So no matter what skills or interests you have, there's a part of biology that would be useful. And so a lot of those skills I've learned working with turtles, I've able to apply to the other species we study at work. And so we'll also catch sharks and other types of fish. We'll tag them for other researchers. And we get to, I can use the skills I've learned with handling turtles and studying turtles to help study sharks and fish as well. And then additionally, I also look at birds. And we have a lot of protected, and by protected, I mean that we are concerned about their future. And so we want to put a lot of effort into studying them and making sure they're okay. And so I will also study birds that are nesting near our beaches, and we will collect data on them as well. And so it is so much of what we do day by day is not just turtles. And as a biologist in any location, I've learned that you will do just about anything on a daily basis, especially when you're working with animals. You never know what's going to show up. Okay. And lastly, as I start to wrap up what I do day by day, all of these skills I mentioned are wonderful. But at the core, when you're doing science, it's really about asking questions. And I know I brought this up before, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about what types of questions that we
Hey, Andie.
ask.
I'm
Yeah.
just gonna jump in real quick. The kiddos leave at 1:45, so if you
Okay.
can wrap up within the next minute, that way we can have 5 minutes
Perfect.
Q&A.
Thank you. And so I ask questions about how we can change their environment and how their environment hurts them, how many turtles there are out there, where do they live at different ages, how fast they grow, where they're going, and how they're sick and why they got sick. And so those are just some questions that we ask. And so, at its core, for conservation work, we try to identify those issues that we see, whether that's pollution or entanglement in fishing line. We do the research, we ask the questions, and then we use that research to inform laws. So that means that we go to our government and we help them make and protect certain parts of the ocean and help produce new laws that help protect animals. And in turn, that protects the habitats they live in. So the beaches they use, the oceans they eat in and use and swim in. And then in turn, that helps create change. And our hope is that this leads to a better future for all the animals that we work to protect. And I wanted to end by showing you some hatchlings from our beaches that hatched just this summer. And so they are on their journey for a better future. Thank you guys. Sorry I talked a lot, but we have gotten to question time.
Can you guys hear me?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Woo! Awesome. All right, so I have a couple questions that morning
Garcia.
side
We put them
and
on.
And yes, and whether be asked, and some of them match what you guys have. Okay. I know some of these questions you also already answered, so I'm not going to repeat the same question. So, for example, I like this one. When you were in training, did you have to start out in a pool before you went into the ocean?
That's a great question. And in some ways, yes. So I learned how to scuba dive to help with the work that I did. And I did start in a pool because the ocean wasn't always right there. And I went to school far from the ocean. So when it came to scuba diving, I did start learning in a pool. And a pool is a great way to get comfortable working and being in water too.
Okay. What is the rarest marine animal that you have worked with?
Ooh, that's a good question. So there are 7 species of sea turtle in the world, and the most critically endangered, and by endangered, I mean that they are the most at risk of going extinct or disappearing. And they're also the most isolated, or they live in the smallest part of the world, are the Kemp's Ridley turtle. And so these turtles you've probably even never heard of. They only nest in Mexico and Texas. And they're also the smallest species of turtle in the world. And so that's probably the rarest animal I've worked with, and they were wonderful to work with.
So if you're in a boat and there's a turtle nearby, how do you know it's there, and how do you catch it, and if it needs help?
That is also a wonderful question. So turtles have to breathe air. They have lungs, right? So they're not like fish that can stay underwater constantly. So they have to come up for breath. And so when we are out looking for turtles, we'll sometimes look for them to come up for breath. And we'll also we like to work in clear water. And so when we drive the boat around, we can see them swimming underwater and we can follow them.
You want to call any kiddos here?
Right, you got a different question?
Yes.
What's your question? Say it. She can hear you.
Speak loud.
Do you see turtles on beaches and roads?
Okay. Do you see turtles on beaches and roads? Is that
Do you save turtles from
Oh, I
beaches and
see. That's a great, I have saved, especially hatchlings, the babies, I have saved many hatchlings on roads. So when I talked about the lighting issues I had to help with early in my career, I spent a lot of time picking up hatchlings off roads.
One more so that we can take our picture that we always take.
She answered her question. What's your question? What's your question?
How does she take the water out of the water and then the turtle's gonna hold her down?
How do they get it? Ask her how they get the turtle out even though it's heavy. Go ahead.
How do y'all get the turtle out the water even though it's heavy?
Oh, that's also a good one. It can be a little hard sometimes. So we like to use boats where the bottom of the boat is close to the water, and if possible, a boat with a really short edge. And so teamwork helps. We always have someone else helping us if it's really heavy. And so we're able to pull that turtle instead of like upwards, it's more like sideways or back, and we're able to pull the turtle on the boat that way. But we have to use really specific, specialized boats to do it.
No, you gotta go all the way up there.
Come up here. Come to the microphone.
To the microphone.
And you guys can write the question.
How do you know if a sea turtle is sick?
Oh, a good one. Okay, so there's a lot of ways we can tell if a turtle is sick. So when you're sick, do you tend to want to like sleep more and you're probably not likely to play outside as much? And so when you're sick, you're usually more tired. And so with turtles, when they're sick for a while, they're not going to be moving as much either. They're just like us. They're going to be sitting on the bottom of the ocean or maybe floating at the surface, just not moving much. And when turtles don't move a lot, barnacles and other like shells and things and algae will attach and grow on them more. And so we'll often see a turtle that's not moving much, maybe just floating at the surface or is starting to get covered in a lot of other animals. And that is often a really good indication to us that the animal's not feeling well. And sometimes if they're super tired and not feeling well, they'll actually wash onto the beach. And so if you see a turtle that's just kind of washed on the beach and not moving, that usually means they're not doing well.
So, Andie, we're going to take a picture, and then maybe you can answer the questions that we didn't get to ask and send them in an email or something. You
Yeah,
perfect. Okay, awesome. Okay.
What does your average workday look like, and how long is your day?
Ooh, that is a good one. That can vary a lot, but my days tend to be on the longer side. And when working with animals, it can be hard to predict just how long your day is going to be because you don't know exactly what's going to come up day by day. But my average day usually looks like getting up very early because when we have a nesting shift, we tend to get on the beach right around sunrise. And so often I will get up at like 5 a.m. I will drive to the beach. I will get on an ATV and I will drive up and down the beach and record all the turtle nests from the night before. I'll go back to my office, and we actually have a site where we catch turtles in the water there too. And so then we will put nets in the water and we will work up turtles as we catch them. And sometimes I'm writing or maybe doing presentations like this or a number of other things, ordering supplies. So much goes into to the work that we do. Maybe I'll be looking at data on our computers, and then we will wrap up the day around 4 or 5. But sometimes we'll get a call on our phone that says that there's an injured turtle on the beach and we have to go get it. And so it really depends day by day. But the days tend to be longer, but when you're doing something you love so much, they go by really quickly, and I cherish every moment of it.
Awesome. So actually, the next question is right around your love and passion for your career. So we had one of the kiddos from Mrs. M's class, from Morningside Elementary ask, what is your favorite thing to do as a marine biologist? And what is your favorite and most exciting mission you've ever been on?
Ooh, that is a good one. Ooh, I think one of the most rewarding things about my job is when you see change occur from something that you studied and collected the data on and worked really hard on, and then you see that make a positive impact for an animal or for um, a habitat or something. And so this is back with the work I did when I was in school. There were a lot of places along the beach where I saw a lot of hatchlings not make it. And it was a really big impact. And over the years of the work that I did there, right before I left, I was able to go out on those beaches, the same ones where hatchlings never went to the water and always ended up in the road. I got to watch those nests hatch perfectly and go right to the water because of the work that we did to help solve some of the lighting issues on the buildings nearby. And so I think when you get to see a project from beginning to end and see that positive change occur, I think that's one of the most wonderful parts about the work that I've gotten to do in my career.
Oh, I love that answer. So we had Nicholas from Mrs. Kistler's class on Morningside ask, can a marine biologist pick the animal they work with?
Oh, nice. Okay. I it's so funny because I didn't start out like necessarily wanting to study turtles. I'd say that the turtles found me instead. Um, I think that if you are very focused and very driven to study one thing, I have seen people make that work many times over. But they're in science and in biology specifically, you don't necessarily have to study just one species. I know people who actually study more like habitats or communities, which communities are, multiple populations, multiple species like working and living together. I see people study like whole habitats, like wetlands or like coastal marine areas. And I also know people who are really good at like a specific like technique, and they use that to study, tons of different species. And so there's no like one way to do it. But I think that if you really want to study one animal, and you look for those jobs and you read all the papers and you really search out for the experiences and the opportunities that are focused on that species, you can definitely do it. Because once I realized that I wanted to study turtles, I have mostly only looked for and taken turtle jobs since then. I've dabbled in birds, and the job that I have now, while it's turtle focused, does allow you to work with other animals, but still, I think I've been able to follow my passion for studying and conserving turtles, and it's been great.
Awesome. Okay, so I am gonna go for two more questions because we don't have a whole lot of time, but we've been able to get through most of them. So the next question is, how do turtles survive with sharks in the ocean?
It's a good one too. Okay, so there are a lot of different predators in the ocean, obviously, and turtles are fairly vulnerable, especially when they are younger. But turtles lay a ton of eggs a season, and so one adult turtle will have hundreds and hundreds of hatchlings coming off the beaches and entering the water every year. And so it's a type of strategy they have, almost like a survival strategy. So while turtles often don't survive sharks when they are younger, there's so many hatchlings going out into the water that enough of them do survive. And they're part of the ecosystem, right? And so some turtles being eaten by sharks when they are younger, that I know that sounds bad, but if it's low enough, it's just part of the circle of life and it's part of the ecosystem they're in. And once they're bigger, their hard shells actually do a lot to protect them. So we'll see turtles come in with shark rakings, so their teeth like scraping on the turtle shell, but the turtle is just fine. And so their shell helps protect them a lot when they're older from shark bites, and they're resilient. Even if maybe they are missing a flipper, I've seen turtles survive just fine with two or three flippers. So their resilience and their hard shells really help protect them once they're older.
Awesome. And then our last question is from Adeline from Mrs. LeConcey's class on Morningside. And it's a really great way to wrap up because it talks about action and helping. So she's asking, can you help the turtles in easy ways? So, like, what are some ways that normal people, like all the students, can take better decisions to protect and help sea turtles?
That's also a great question. I think there are so many ways, especially I'm not sure if all these students are in Florida. I should have
Yeah,
asked.
yes.
Okay, so especially for kids that live in Florida, I mean, there's so many ways to help and protect sea turtles outside of, but when they're in your backyard, there's so many more ways. And so, especially during the summer months or like April through October, if you're walking on the beach or at the beach with your family, filling in holes and picking up trash can be really helpful for our nesting turtles and the ones that are hatching. It helps protect them from getting stuck in holes. And it helps keep trash out of their way when they are crawling to the water. And so little things like that make a huge difference for those nesting turtles that are on our beaches. Another thing I always like to bring up is just learning. I think that learning about turtles and learning about the turtles that live in our area um, is so beneficial long term. And then sharing that knowledge with your friends and family, I think knowing information and knowing about turtles and how where they live in our local communities and where they are is so beneficial. And if you're out fishing with your family at a pier or something, I think being careful about where that fishing line goes and fishing in a way that helps limit like turtles being wrapped in fishing line. So always cleaning up your fishing line and fishing gear out of those areas is also really helpful because we do see a decent impact to turtles at like fishing piers in this area. So those are a few options, but again, learning I think is one of the biggest ones and also very fun. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering all the questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.